Hello everyone, good evening. We're going to go over today 3 different types of kiddos that have a presentation. This may be all, these kiddos may have a label that may be like ADHD, autism, and sensory processing disorder. So what do these 3 labels have in common? That's what we're going to go over tonight. Hey, if you haven't met me, if I haven't met you before, I'm Dr. Angela Aberg. I am a chiropractor in Escondido, California, and our office helps these kiddos through these challenges and helps to decrease the symptoms that are coming along with some of these types, some of these labels that the kids might have. And we're in Escondido, California, but we know videos can travel all over. So there's lots of pediatric chiropractors in and around the country, and we want to make sure that if there's anybody that needs to be connected, that we absolutely can connect. So if you end up watching this in a different part of the country, go ahead and comment below your area. We will check later on to make sure if there's anybody that we can help. And if you're in the North County, San Diego area, then that's close to where Escondido is. So that's someplace that may be close enough for you to get some help, because we are so passionate about helping these little ones, about helping little ones just rock life, right? Just thrive through life. And so we're super passionate about bringing this information to parents so that parents can identify and they know what's going on, and they can get an idea that there may be more help for their children. Wonderful things children experience through physical therapy, through occupational therapy, speech therapy. These are all awesome. And you know what's great is that chiropractic care, when it's appropriately necessary, can help those therapies just rock on even quicker and faster. We've seen where a child is in speech therapy, and then when they start chiropractic care, all of a sudden the speech therapist says, "Oh my God, what are you doing different?" And the only thing different was bringing in the chiropractic care to help release different parts of the nervous system. And so chiropractic care can help these therapies that our kiddos are doing just blast and go even further. If you like something that we're saying, please hit a wow face or a heart, or just show some love. And we'd love to be able to know where you're coming from. So if you hop on, give us a little mention about where you're coming from, and so we can know where we're reaching to. One thing I wanna let you know all the way through this is we're gonna use some labels, but we don't use name calling. We try to use labels in the office as little as possible, as absolutely little as possible. And so, especially in front of the little ones, we don't want to use the labels that they may be tagged with, because there could be a negative connotation. We want to bring out their superpowers, their superhero self, right? So we try not to use labels. But for the purpose of this conversation today, we're going to use 3 little nicknames that we use, and we're going to use these nicknames to help you understand the presentation, and we use them to help our scanning system. We help us to get an idea of what we're dealing with, and then we rock on. Then we know exactly how the child's going to progress through their care plan, and we know we can predict when little changes are going to happen. So typically, we talked about ADHD, we talked about sensory processing disorder, and we talked about autism. So these 3, the commonality is that there's neurologic component that can happen, and these can happen from little neurologic changes that can happen possibly during the birth process, if the birth process is a difficult one. So these 3 little nicknames that we have, first one is called Raging Bull, the second one is called Drunken Bull, and then the third one is a combination of the 2. So the first one is called Raging Bull. You can imagine that you're just a bull that's ready to charge, right? They've got a lot of muscle activity, and the reason why we tagged it raging bull is because there is a lot of muscle activity in the upper back of this child when we do a certain scanning procedure. In our office, we have these three simple scans that kiddos usually rock right through them. And this first one, this raging bull, this little child that may already have a diagnosis of ADHD, then there's this presentation that shows this tight activity in the upper part of the back. So this child may have the diagnosis of ADHD. They may already be on a medication or something. This little one is always moving. This is your adventure seeker. This is your guy that's always going, always moving, running, jumping, playing, just moving, constant activity. This little child is going to have high carb cravings. So they're going to want the pastas, and they're going to want the breads, and they're going to want the candies and the sweet juices and things like that. High carb cravings, and this is something that you may know that you have a little kiddo that's got this kind of challenge. This little one is going to have little awareness of danger. So their awareness of danger is going to be super low. They're going to be the ones that are jumping off the back of the couch. They might be jumping off of a tall wall, right? More than they could normally handle. They might get up on the countertops and jump off. This is your adventure seeker. This is your thrill seeker child. This is the one that mom's running around after, trying to make sure that he's not hurting himself or she's not hurting herself, because they are such thrill seekers, such adventure seekers. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to match the inside revving up engine to the outside. So this jumping off of things and this thrill seeking, they're trying to match the inside energy that they feel into the outside, and then trying to kind of equalize things by doing that. These little ones don't like to sleep. They don't like to nap. They don't like to sleep. They're going to go all day long, all the way until they absolutely crash. So at night, they're probably going to be up a little bit past the other children, and they're just going to crash out at night, and then they're gone until the morning when they wake up and they continue on again. If your child has this sounds familiar, then we may be seeking, we may be with this adventure seeker, right? This raging bull type personality. These little ones have low awareness of remorse. So let's say they're playing cars and they run their car into somebody. They're not going to tend to say, I'm sorry. They're not going to even maybe acknowledge that the other person could be injured. If they are playing and they play super rough, or they punch or they kick, they're not going to have as much awareness of remorse, and they're not going to be as willing to apologize because they're not aware of the remorse. Their brain is so busy going that these little ones may miss concepts in school. That's why children that struggle with ADHD, sometimes grades can be a challenge, because their brain is so busy entertaining other things, and it's not filtering out other things, that they don't catch the concepts as they come by in school. So math teachers teaching a concept, or first grade teachers teaching a concept, and their brain is busy being aware of many other things, and they're not listening to the concept that the teacher does. So grades can be a real challenge with these kiddos. Grinding of teeth. As your child is sleeping, you may notice that they're grinding their teeth a lot. If you hear this teeth grinding, then you may have a little one that's moving towards this raging bull type presentation. If you hear that teeth scanning. In our office, we do an assessment procedure that there's 3 parts to a computerized scan. One of the parts is a muscle activity. So we measure surface EMG. So it's measurement of the muscle activity that's happening around their spine. So on that scan, this child, this raging bull type child, is going to have a super high energy score. So total energy score may be normally around 100. And with the child that may be diagnosed with ADHD, with this raging bull type presentation, we may have a total energy score of 200, 250, 300. I've even seen a 350 score. We've seen a 350 score in a little girl who was 5 years old. Like, that's just intense. So much muscle activity. You almost can't believe it. But that is absolutely their motor nerves, their brain is sending out so much to these muscles that we have this very, very high total energy score and a low, kind of a moderate to low symmetry of that muscle activity. So high total energy, that means that there's a lot of energy, but that energy is not organized. It's very disorganized. And so if you can imagine, like, sometimes we talk about a Ferrari engine, like let's say you had a sports car. These little kiddos are like a Ferrari sports car with their motor, but what do we have for brakes? We just have bicycle brakes. And if you got a Ferrari motor going, then those bicycle brakes just are not going to handle the turns. It's not going to handle the times to slow down. It's not going to handle the stopping. And so that's kind of like what their system, their nervous system is working on. Very high energy, but low and moderate ability to direct and coordinate that energy. So second kind of child that we see, the second presentation we call called a drunken bull presentation. So now you can imagine a bull who's got a lot of power, but very uncoordinated, like not really using that power efficiently at all. So this child, this second presentation, this drunken bull is going to have a super clumsy presentation. So they're not going to be coordinated. They're not going to pick up sports really quickly. They may have a diagnosis of sensory processing disorder, and they are definitely going to not seek social engagements. In fact, they're going to be the ones that are going to shy away from or really look away from any kind of social engagement. So they're not going to be good at eye contact. They're not going to really want to talk. They're not going to want to sit and chit chat. They're not going to do small pleasantries, right? They're going to look away from any eye contact. They're going to look away from any engagement, any social engagement. This type of drunken bull presentation, it has a lot of sensory, and one of them is social. That sensory just overwhelms. So when this child gets overwhelmed, they're going to clam up. Whereas the first child, that raging bull child is going to get overwhelmed and they're just going to go faster. The drunken bull child, when they get overwhelmed, they are going to clam up. They're going to get tired. Hey, Paul, nice to see you. Hi, Laura. When that drunken bull, when they get overwhelmed, they are just going to clam up. They're going to get angry. They're going to tighten their lips and they're going to stomp off. They are just not going to engage. This drunken bull, they may have really sensory aversion. So tags in the clothes are going to bother them. The texture of the fabric is going to bother them. Lights may bother them. Noise may bother them. All of these sensory aversions, because their brains are not able to coordinate and filter. So they can't coordinate and filter this activity. And so they run away from noise. They run away from light. Hey there, Laura. They go move away from any fabrics that don't feel good. They don't like lights. They don't like noise. And if this child sounds like yours, then you may be able to get some help. This one, for this kind of child, I love to give the analogy of remember the I Love Lucy show? So remember the I Love Lucy show when Lucy and Ethel go to work in some kind of chocolate factory, right? And so there's chocolates that are coming down a conveyor belt, and Ethel and Lucy, who are just these two goofballs, look at YouTube and check it out, they're just these two goofballs. But what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to pick up a chocolate and wrap it and put it back down and pick up a chocolate. And so this conveyor belt is going along along. And so let's say that this conveyor belt in the movie, I Love Lucy, the conveyor belt is going along. And as long as there's maybe just like 5 or 10 chocolates coming through, they're doing pretty good. They pick them up, they wrap them, they put them down. But when the conveyor belt gets turned up, so that's kind of like high sensory input. That's like a lot of lights, a lot of noise, a lot of fabric that's got a scratchy texture. That's all input. That's kind of like Ethel and Lucy when the conveyor belt gets turned up. Then now instead of 5 or 10 chocolates, now you've got 20 or 50 or 100 chocolates coming down, and they just can't handle it. So what do Ethel and Lucy do? They take the chocolates and they're putting them in their hat and they're putting them in their mouth, and they ate so many chocolates they're throwing them over their shoulder, right? Because they can't output what's being input. So check out that I Love Lucy. So it's probably on YouTube somewhere. But with these little kiddos that are kind of like a drunken bull presentation, they have that inability. They don't have that ability to take a lot of information coming through the nervous system, process it, and then respond to it in a super good manner. So when we scan these little ones, when we do our muscle scanning on these little ones, it's going to show moderate to high energy. So they're not going to be the 250s or the 350s. They're going to be maybe 175, 200, maybe 225. So moderate energy, but very low symmetry. So remember, we were talking about total energy and we were talking about symmetry in our assessment. These kiddos are going to have a super low symmetry. So muscle activity is not symmetrical at all. And we see a lot of presentation of high muscle activity on one side, a little bit higher. It's going to be high on the other side. So symmetry is just way, way, way off. So with these little kiddos that have a medium to high muscle activity score and a super low symmetry score, then that's our drunken bull presentation. That's our little kiddo that may have a label of sensory processing disorder. They may have to wear earphones to filter out the information, and during care, the important part, during care for these little ones, as we start, we have to wake up the nervous system, and then we have to teach it how to process the information. So as we go through care for the little ones, this is why we use these 3 types, these 3 little nicknames, so that we can help a parent know, because we can almost predict when we're waking up that nervous system. We can help schedule and help tell the parents that watch out for the next immune challenge, or watch out for the next emotional outburst, because it may be higher than normal. Because on this little one, we're going to have to wake up that nervous system, and then we're going to calm it back down. So this is super helpful. Can you imagine if you're a parent and through care, somebody's going to tell you ahead of time that your child for the next maybe 5 days to 2 weeks is going to be a little over emotional, but just get through it because it's going to level out on the backside. Like, that could be super helpful for parents. And we wake up that nervous system, and then it gets calmed back down. So the third type, so we had a raging bull, then we had the drunken bull. The third little nickname is a combination of those two. So it's like a raging drunken bull. We've got high energy on our scans, and we've got very low symmetry. So remember, the drunken bull had a medium energy. The combination type is going to have a really high energy, but then a super low symmetry score. These are the little ones that may already have a spectrum type diagnosis. And this is where the nervous system has had so many challenges and is not good at filtering information, that critical information really starts to get lost. So these little ones are also going to have an aversion to tags, noises, lights, sounds. These may be the ones that really need to wear earphones because they just can't handle the noise input. It's for them, any kind of noise input is just like listening to Metallica. It's way more than their body could handle. They're going to have sensory processing. They may have a sensory processing diagnosis also, but they're definitely going to have sensory aversions. It may even be texture for food. So especially in this combination type, little ones that they get used to a certain texture of food and they may only stick with that texture. If you give them something that's more crunchy or really more smooth, they're not going to like either one of those differences. They're going to want to stay right in that middle lane. So once they find a few types of food, then they don't want to venture out and find other types of food. So actually when these sensory aversions start to go away, then the children are willing to try different types of foods, maybe a vegetable texture, or maybe a crunchy texture, or maybe even a smooth texture like a yogurt or a smoothie if they didn't like that time before. These little ones with this, for all three, we like to talk about this bucket analogy. If you can imagine, we've got a bucket and we're going to fill it with water. And as we fill that bucket with water, those are the challenges that are coming at us. And the better we deal with those challenges, we can empty our bucket and then get ready for it to fill more. Or like Lucy and Ethel, we can handle when the chocolate conveyor belt gets turned up. But with this bucket analogy, when we work with the children, we are helping them be able to empty the bucket and be ready for more water. So if you can imagine that pouring water into a bucket, let's say that it's lights, let's say that it's noise, let's say that it's a transition, let's say that it is a change of a season from summer to fall. All those things are water that goes in the bucket. If a child can't empty the bucket or process the water, that is going to spill over, and that's when we get meltdowns. So the raging bull meltdown is more angry. The drunken bull meltdown is more of a withdrawal and a retreat and a clam up. And then the combination could be either one of the two depending upon the information or depending on the time and the mood of the child at the time. But what's happening with all three of these is that the child's bucket is just overflowing, and the child does not know, the nervous system of this child does not know how to process this information and empty the bucket and get ready for more. And simply when we are helping children by doing these gentle neurologic adjustments to their upper neck, it's actually helping the child toss out that information, toss out all that water and get ready to catch some more, get ready to catch some more. Because so you can imagine as adults how much information we process on a daily basis, and when we've got it together, right? So these little ones that have a challenge, when all of the sensory information goes in, they just kind of forget. And they don't know how to filter. Their nervous system doesn't know how to filter out the information, and then they can't get ready to process more. What I want to do is that with that bucket analogy, this just think of it like if you had all these information pieces coming in, just think of it like, oh, this child's able to empty their bucket and be ready for more. So when you're watching your children, watch for them, watch when you see they're getting close to that bubbling over point. And that's when you can slow down a little bit. If this information is making sense to you, contact our office or contact another specially trained pediatric chiropractor so that you can learn how to help their nervous system process this out a little more. Because what we want to do is we don't want to change. There's no cure here. We're helping children through these challenges, and we want to help these superpowers, right? So you know your little ones that they got, moms and dads, we know that we see the superpowers in our children. We see what they're really good at, and then we see their little quirks. And what the care is designed to do is help children go from quirks into superpowers and move over into that superpower. You know, so Superman, right? is Clark Kent. And so Clark Kent's kind of this quirky little guy, but then when he takes off his suit, he's Superman. That's the vision that we have in our office for these little kiddos. We want to find their superpowers. Moms and dads know their superpowers that the little ones have. And so we see this transition as from little quirks to finding their superpowers and helping the children be aware of their superpowers and then be able to express them. Because let's face it, these kids, right? We talked about the high energy. There is really high productivity happening. These are the children that are world changers. When they grow up, they will change the world. And that's why we really want to help them find that inner superpower, that inner superhero, so they can grow up through the milestones and direct that energy properly so that they can be the world changers that they're going to be. There's so much information to go over here. I wish I could stay for a long time, but I want to say that if you found any of this information helpful, on October 25th, that's a Thursday evening, actually physically in the office here at 6:30, we're going to have a live presentation of this information and more. Lots of research articles, a little more data on exactly how the birth trauma happens. It's about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. So I invite you, if any of this has sounded interesting or any of this sounds familiar, join us on October 25th at 6:30 in the office here. RSVP to the event that's on Facebook, because we would love to help you with this information. We love to empower parents. We want strong, confident parents, loving families, superhero kiddos. That's what we're in the process of making here. So hey, if you found it valuable, then post a comment below. If there's different topics that you want to hear, put that information in the post below, and we'll see it. I'm going to post a link below to the October 25th event so that you can see that right below. And hey, I've had a wonderful time tonight. I love and appreciate you. Have a beautiful evening.